Composing the tweet. Sending you the YouTube link. Facebook. All right, welcome for joining the official PokerTube podcast. I'm Jeff Boski. You can find me on YouTube, channel Jeff Boski. Over 100 poker vlogs in Las Vegas. Check it out. Make sure you subscribe to the PokerTube YouTube channel for updates and alerts for all the live videos we put out. Pete Manzanelli also putting out some great content. And of course, visit PokerTube.com for the latest poker news, videos, and entertainment. Today, we're joined by Phil Collins, a.k.a. USC Phildo, online. He hails from South Carolina, now residing in Las Vegas, Nevada. He's got over $3 million in online winnings. He's a November Niner, winning over $2.2 million in his fifth place finish in 2011. He's known to get in Twitter wars with Negreanu and any other takers about politics. His account's now suspended, but he's still talking. We got him here tonight. Welcome, Phil Collins.
Hey, what's up, Jeff? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Welcome to the PokerTube podcast. A lot to talk about, a lot going on in your life since that infamous, great November 9 experience. You now know you're the last of a dying breed. There are no more November 9s. So was there like 90 of you in existence, and there'll never be another one?
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool club to be in, especially within your own fraternity. Every time I see like Martin Stasko, you have such a genuine smile because you've shared something that was just so fucking terrific that you had the break and everybody knew your name. And in that time that you know you're going to compete with someone, they were your favorite people to kind of hang out with because they were the only ones that kind of knew what it was like that year to it played on live TV. And every time I see Matt Giannetti and whatnot, like it's always just you see a face that you know, you might give him a nod, but now it's always oh, that's a smile. I remember Giannetti, I know him. Or Ben Lamb gave me a big hug when he saw me this year. It's just that I think that I would imagine that every year has that little kind of club feeling, and it's cool that now the club might be exclusive or over.
No, that's sweet. What did you, looking back, was it like a 4-month break? What did you do to prepare, get sponsorship, all that? What was your average day like?
I actually went to Europe for 9 weeks. I played at 6 different poker stops. I had never gone to Europe and played many high stakes tournaments. And actually, I didn't think that went really well at all. And to be honest, I was playing a sit and go for life-changing money. And the only way you can simulate that is to actually simulate it. A lot of people have put the chip stacks in a live scenario and actually ran the blinds. And I've had a good friend of mine, Bucky, and I think Brent Hanks and a few others have worked with past November Niners since I did it. In my back pocket, I felt like I was one of the best no limit hold'em tournament players in the world. So of all the people that really needed to put in a lot of work, I certainly was in the lowest category. So I kind of wanted to make sure that I felt good. And I knew that a boss, someone who is going to win the World Series, would be over in Europe and would be playing high stakes tournaments. So that's what I did. I went to Barcelona, London, then Cannes. And then I met my wife and I played tournaments there. Barcelona was an EPT. The WPT in Paris was won by Matt Waxman. And I was sitting in the room when he won, which was awesome. Had a good time, a decent time, I guess. We actually walked to the Eiffel, to the Louvre from our hotel, and it was about 2 miles. And the Louvre is closed on Tuesdays.
Wow. Yeah, you might as well, get that experience, travel, and try to
enjoy the walk. And, a great conversation. That was in between like day 1 and 2 break. He went on to win it. Had a great dinner there. The staff was amazing at the Aviation Club, and that was an awesome experience to play in that kind of poker room. The club in Paris and I kind of got to feel like a high roller because I was the dude who was next to the guy who was winning. So that was awesome. Went to Cannes and played the Partouche Poker Tour that I think Sam Trickett went on to win. And that is a beautiful city right on the coast of the Mediterranean. That's where they have the film festival. And then I flew to Berlin and met my wife there. We both took German in high school, so really enjoyed Germany. Then we went to Munich for Oktoberfest, which was terrific. They have roller coasters and funnel cakes and carnival games, and then massive tents where they serve massive beers. And got to see and do all that. Did some hiking, and then played 3 more stops. Went back to Cannes for the World Series of Poker Europe. I basically bluffed it off in every tournament. I don't know why. Looking back, I feel so stupid. Like all of them, where I kind of like looking back, that was, yeah, you punted just over and over. I don't know why. Some of them were very good bluffs, and some of them were not. Then let's see. Went to London, played an EPT. I bubbled the high roller there, which was I played the biggest buy-in of my life. I played a 25,000 euro high roller event in London around the EPT London, and I think 8 cashed, and I got 10th or 11th. And first was like $1 million, and 8th was like $250,000. So it was one of the sickest bubbles I've ever approached. That kind of Sam Trickett was on my right. I played at the hardest table I've ever played in my life. So I think the plan might not have been the best. Maybe I should have run simulations, but I really felt very confident in my game coming back. By the time I got back, I also wasn't sitting in Vegas where I live, worried about this tournament every day that I wasn't kind of doing something. I would have felt stupid. So whenever I was taking a day off, it was touring Berlin or whatever, and my mind was far, far away, and I could relax. And then Matt Berkey actually got 42nd in the main event the year before me. I was in the room when he busted. Jonathan Duhamel raised pocket 8s, and he called with 10-6, and it came, I think 10-6. It came 6-6-3. He check raised him, and Duhamel turned an 8. And Matt Berkey was going to make the November 9 that year. And if Duhamel didn't turn an 8, he was going to win a huge pot, and he might have won that whole thing. It's sick to be in the poker community and know that like SC Trojan's got a 19, and that he could have been a hero back in the day, like the Jerry Yang year, stuff like that. And that Ben Lamb had already come close, and that he could have been a hero. But Berkey was the one person that I basically talked to about my limping strategy going in. I asked Jason Mercier, hey man, what do you think about me at the final table? Like, what are your thoughts? He just goes, just do your thing, man. He gave me like a really blanket, like, just be confident and play your game. I was like, that's awesome that he didn't even give me any advice. I mean, he's such a good poker player and kind of a good person that he just like, do your thing. And I realized what I wanted to do was limp, and I didn't need his approval. I didn't even tell him what I was going to do. I didn't tell anybody what I was going to do, really, at all. That was my decision. And I knew Matt Berkey was the best poker player that I knew, and me and him knew how to limp better than anyone. So I discussed my strategy with him. He wanted me to limp 100% because he's a freak, and I decided I wanted to raise some hands, which is where me and him actually disagree. And obviously, I don't know if he's playing for hundreds of thousands in the tournament in Florida right now. He went on to become one of the best poker players in the world, and our community all knows it. So looking back, he was the guy that I was discussing my most intimate strategy with in the last like days before, and then I played the best I could. So I've lived with the result.
So was he the first one to start open limping, or was it you?
To be honest, it was Erick Lindgren. That's the first time I ever saw it. Remember, he won an F-Tops in 2007 or early 2008, where he hosted it. It was a $300 F-Tops. It was like $300,000 to first. And of course, I was watching him. It's one of those like big tournaments where you decide to watch people, and I decided to watch him because he was such a boss at the time. Like, yeah, let's watch his table this F-Tops. Especially once I saw he was on the leaderboard, like with a couple hundred left. I watched him like the whole way. I was one of those people that watched that entire win, and he was limping the cutoff. And I got to see hands show down, and it just made me think, why is he doing that? Is it the best play? In what scenarios would I want to do it? Like, this is a unique, doesn't mean I'm going to do it in a $10 rebuy. He's playing it deep in an F-tops with certain stack sizes, and he's found a reason. And do I need to find that reason too? He's a famous player. Like, I'm just an online guy who I know I'm good. People tell me I'm good, but there has to be a reason why this boss is doing this, and that would confuse the hell out of people like me or just my peers, and I want to add it to my game. And Berkey, I lived with him in summer 2007 to summer 2008. Me and Brett Hanks both knew that he was probably better than us, but our results were just way better than his. And we realized it's because he's a kind of a cash game Omaha. He's kind of an Omaha player from the start, and then like a cash game no limit player that just wants to dominate. And in a tournament, when you have 20 and 30 blinds, you can't. There are certain game theory scenarios that make it terrible for you to be playing 40% of hands, for to be raising 40% of hands. And he realized, not if I'm limping. With this stack size, he found a way to start being exploitative where he was limping 100% because he just wanted to limp his entire range, and it allowed him to play 30, 40% of hands with 20 big blind stacks and start to murder people. And then I think game theory wise, what he was giving up and maybe a little bit of chippy V, he was gaining so much in preserving his tournament life. And when you're the best player at the table, giving up small edges to preserve your tournament life is one of those give and takes that you should be doing all the time, I think. And he's so good that he figured out a way to do that. And now that he's applied, I think this kind of careful strategy to not bust in tournaments. He tries to win every hand without busting. It's working out for him.
So is there a set range for what you do in each situation? When you open limp and you face a raise or 3-bet, what hands you fold, what hands you call, and which hands you go over the top?
Yeah, but in everything that I do, I try to have a very strong macro approach. I want to know in general what I want to be doing in every scenario, but in the moment I want to make the best decision that I think is the right moment then, with the knowledge that what I'm going to do is about to affect the very next play as well the most. So if that makes sense, like I don't want to limp and fold immediately if I'm scared that they're going to be, oh well, he just limps and fold, now I'll raise everything. I might have a hand that I would want to fold, but I can't because it was the first time I wanted. So I'll take all of that into consideration. In fact, I actually took that into consideration with Pius, where I limped ace queen, and he ISO'd me to like a little over 3x. I want to say 3.5x. And I realized that if we were playing the F-Tops main event and no one could see my whole cards, I would have folded. Because I didn't think anybody was about to start messing with my limps. It's a 9-handed table for life-changing money. It's not like they're going to go out of their way to try to ISO me that light. Maybe they'll do it with ace 10, but they're probably doing it anyway. And in the moment, I thought it was super strong. And if it's ace jack or ace 10, it doesn't matter. But if I call, I could get outplayed. And if I 3-bet, it's like it kind of does. I feel like he has it too. I 3-bet, he shoved, and it was just the easiest fold I've ever made in my life. Like, he's 4-betting all in against my limp pre-raise range. I also knew that if I did it, it would give me the next play is going to be the easiest decision you've ever made. You're either going to be raking in chips and sliding your cards forward, or you're going to be folding the worst hand. And I had to show that hand to every single player at the table in 30 minutes, which also changed the decision. And I realized if I limped and folded ace queen and then showed the whole table, that was the worst thing that I could do at that point once I had limped the hand.
I remember that hand, believe it or not.
I had to call at least, or I would get murdered. And I decided that he would just throw away everything but his monsters, and it would be really I would set the tone, especially if he just kind of flicked away ace jack, and it's like, look how that hand just got played. Phil didn't even have to like see a flop out of position. It looked good. I like the way I did that. I think Berkey wanted me to limp call. The first time I opened under the gun with ace-7 and Pius 3-bet me with king jack, I limped 3 hands. So I knew that I was going to get 3-bet mercilessly. ONOD was on my right and came into the day second in chips, and he bluffed off half the stack to Pius, which made it even worse. So I started limping even more. But I probably could have 3-bet a little bit more. I let Giannetti win a few pots. But part of that was the laddering and knowing that it's kind of a sit and go where those chips just don't matter. And I did put myself in a great position where I wasn't at all in that tournament until there were 6 left. So I'm proud of the way I kind of put myself in position to win, but it was Pius's thing.
Yeah. I played with you in a Venetian event a few years ago, and I remember how relentless you were with your button 3-bets. And a lot of times you showed down ace rag, but most of them just got through. And I assume you just had an ace blocker, and that was kind of revolutionary at the time. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. I remember whenever I was first trying to figure out what I wanted to 3-bet light, and I used to, in my mind, kind of wait for ace-8 or ace-9 if somebody was opening light. Like, oh, this is a good spot, because I knew that calling with like king-queen suited was a good play. It's a hand that flops well, right? I'll make top pair. It's simple to play. But with the ace-9, it'd come jack-7-3, and I'd lose. Or it comes whatever, and you lose. And you also know that this person is opening light enough. If I re-raise, they're probably going to fold. They're going to think I have it. So I kind of want to have it, but I kind of want to not have it. But with a hand like ace-9, I realized it just started to become pretty easy. That was in 2007. Probably very far ahead of the curve to know to just 3-bet ace-8 off, especially if I saw someone open twice in an orbit. The mathematics behind putting that into your range, just doubling your 3-bet range and adding the ace-8s and ace-9 offs, was just very, very profitable. And then they start blasting ace-queens and ace-jacks when you have ace-king, because they've seen it a couple of times. And then I went to Turning Stone for the first time ever, and I made the final table of the first tournament I played. It was a $500 tournament, and I was actually in the room for the first time, the cash game room. I think I was getting ready to play 2-5. As I played 2-5, the person on my left asked me who I was, and I didn't want to tell him. Actually, let's go back a second. In 2007, the second trip I ever took to Vegas was at Caesar's Palace, and I met you there.
Oh, yeah. We got into it, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't like you at first. I don't think you liked me because specifically I was saying, hey, I'm USC Fildo, and I heard you say audibly, maybe to my face, yeah, you keep bragging to everyone, you're USC Fildo, we know. I was like, oh, maybe I should just be quiet. You were right too. Like I could just play and say my name is Phil rather than, hey, do you play on the internet, on the sites? Here's my name.
Yeah, this is like 10 years ago or something, but I just remember you lost a pot.
It was
you lost a pot, and I was like,
yeah. 2007, I'm positive.
Okay.
Caesars, it was the second time I've ever been to Vegas. First time was I graduated in 2007. I took my like 10K bankroll and played 2 events at the World Series. Then I went again and stayed at Caesars for like 2 weeks and played their tournament series, and I saw you there. I remember because you kept doing good. Every time I kind of, who was this guy? You were clearly good at poker as well, so it made it kind of memorable. And yeah, I've always kind of followed your career. I always remember Jeff Boski from Caesars, and you've always been good. So Turning Stone was like my next trip after that. And I wasn't telling anybody who I was. And I felt, this is me straight up because of you. Alan Berry was sitting on my direct left at 2-5, and obviously it became clear that I was good at what I was doing. And but at this time he's like, so what's your name? And I didn't want to tell him. But it was Alan Berry. Imagine sitting in a cash game, winning next to Alan Berry, who keeps asking you your screen name, and then you refuse to tell him. So that's why he started to love me, because I didn't want to tell him. And he like kind of made it a thing. The next day he came up to me because you told me you won the 30 rebuy 2 days ago. I figured out who you are. You're USC Fildo. Okay. So I made the first tournament was a $500 event, and I made the final table with Bucky Chewie. Now here's how I think that I'm pretty damn good at poker. But even looking back at some of the thoughts that I had back in the day, I still impressed myself. While I was waiting for that seat, I looked around the room. I remember looking Bucky Chewie right in the face, and I had no idea who he was. I just looked at him and watched him play without knowing any of his cards, and I was like, that's probably the best player in the room. You know what I mean? Like where you can, all right, that kid knows what he's doing. It's so obvious. He's very calm. Just looking at his demeanor, he's got enough chips. Yeah, the kid knows what he's doing. He's so calm. Like it just looking at everybody else around him. This is kind of a disheveled guy, a worried guy, somebody drinking. He's just very cool and collected. It was all over his face that he was not somebody that you would win pots off easily. Sure enough, he made the final table of that tournament. I think I might have flipped it against him, got 7th or something. On a break, Christian Harder came up to me and said, "Hey, who are you?" "I'm Charter 30. Like, "I'm USC Phildo." He's like, "Oh, you're USC Phildo? Do you want to play online with us?" And I played in a room with Zugwat, who went on to be a cash game super boss, 200, 400, heads up, no limit. His won a Alpha 8, Hold Please, who had gotten kicked out of his room at the time for weed. That was the first time I ever remembered him. I loved him. He was just sitting over in the corner. I think he won a tournament for like 30,000 too. I was like, this community is so weird. I sat next to Zugwat and talked with Lucky Chewie while Zugwat won 100 rebuy or played 100 rebuy in a room while he's like, "Yeah, I'm doing this because." It's hard to describe how lucky and lucrative that scenario was for somebody who was pretty damn good at poker already to start sitting around, and then you could see what those people all went on to do. Lucky Chewie, who said, "You know, you really don't need to wait for anything. You could just 3-bet with 8 a lot of the time." Like, head exploded. Wow, you're right. I don't have to wait for ace 8. I might as well have 8-3. It doesn't matter. If I know like they're going to fold, especially like I haven't 3-bet this guy. He's stolen the blinds a couple of times. He's doing all right for himself. He'll probably fold. That took my game to a new level. And then after that, I started probably 3-betting a lot more than anyone. They were doing it at 100 rebuy levels, but I think because I was kind of coming up at the mid stakes, I had a really elite game that started to dominate, and I did very well for myself in 2008. And a lot of that was because of the Christian Harder coming up to me and saying, "Who are you? You've made this final table. Never seen you up here." "Oh, okay, you're USC Phildo." And I had done well enough for him to recognize the name and said, "Would you like to grind with us?" And then I sat next to some of the clearly best players in the world, and that was in 2008 and or late 2007, 2008, and that's how you get a really good career kick-started. And then I got a backer to play whatever I wanted the next year.
Yeah, those are some really good points. The networking effect of poker and people in the same situation getting together and sharing all the secrets and all the strategy they know just helps out immensely when you're coming up in the game. And like you said, how you recognized Lucky Chewie is one of the best players in the room just by how he plays his hands, how he puts the chips in the pot, the mannerisms. I think that's just game recognizes game. It's a sixth sense.
Yeah, as someone who's competed in sports my whole life, poker is a lot like that, where you see someone that has a competitive edge like a Jason Koon. How would you describe him? Like, if you asked the poker community, how many people would put competitive up there if you hung around with him? That you know that he came from an athletic background. How about baseball? He played baseball. Berkey played college baseball. That competitive edge and will to win, desire to win, and it can come in different forms, but you can see it in someone calm like Lucky Chewie, or someone calm but looking like very like a badass like Berkey. There's the kind of level of similar. Both of those guys have game. If you sit at a poker table, it's very recognizable. You start to immediately wonder, what are they doing and why? How do they think? What's their approach to the game? I realized Lucky Chewie was feeling a lot. You could almost see it. He could almost tell you he's not good with numbers. That's what I realized. That the kid is just, he knows what's going to happen kind of before it happens. Me, I kind of have my strategy, and I hope good things happen to me. You see the different levels of intelligence and approach, but the same kind of will to win. Both of us kind of were intrigued at what each other had to say.
Yep. Shout out to Lucky Chewie, guest on the PokerTube podcast. Check out our interview we did. It was could change your life for the better. He spreads a lot of knowledge about the life simulation and what you can do to be a better person, and just enjoy what's been given to us. I definitely agree with a lot of those things you said about the presence and background in sports. I think that also translate well from the gaming community, whether it's online shooter games, CSGO like Doug Polk, or Magic the Gathering, chess. any type of strategy game can be easily.
Griffin Banger.
What's that?
Griffin Banger who played. Remember the game that.
StarCraft or something.
One of those.
World of Warcraft. No.
But yeah.
Some shooting internet game with a bunch of Asian kids. But yeah, same competitive environment, which definitely the strategy aspect translate well. That's why I think the relation between the gamble and the disregard for money, handling the swings, I think that goes over with a lot of poker players into the crypto world. Bitcoins, Ethereum, stuff like that seem to be very, very high priority in the poker world.
In general, I think that poker players have a very healthy relationship with risk. You might think that poker players go broke a lot, so they don't, but I would emphatically disagree, because I think a lot of people in life don't take enough risks. That's how someone like Elon Musk became who he is. He got $1 billion from PayPal and immediately put it into rockets, while everyone told him that was stupid. And sometimes, like things where you just want to go all in, it's the best approach and you get the maximum reward. I actually saw Berkey become almost flat broke. And that's part of the reason why he was like, okay, I have to figure out how to beat tournaments, because that's how everyone's making money and I need to make money. And I guess the risk aversion that we've learned in, like, it's all right to bluff off your stack sometimes. If you're not bluffing off your stack, you're probably being too risk averse, right? And so I think in life, if you're not willing to put 50% of yourself into an idea, then is it really even worth it? We realized that we were giving up a lot to play poker professionally, but then that risk paid off for a lot of us. I actually was accepted to law school and turned it down. But when you look at that decision, I turned down law school, moved to Vegas to do it. Made the final table of the main event. Like, good decision. Seemed incredibly risky to everyone, probably at face value. Like, why would you do something like that? But certainly no regrets to take that risk. And I'm actually looking to take more risks in my life. Maybe go all in on a business or travel or do other things. And I think Mike Sowers even said something similar in your interview, where if I do anything, I'm all in. And that's kind of risk aversion, where you normally kind of want to spread out, so you don't just run into failure. And it's like, absolutely not. I'm trying to run into a lot of success in something that's gonna change my life tenfold rather than 10%. And that's how I think poker players look at their bankroll as well. And when they see an opportunity to 10x their money or 100x their money, that's something that they're willing to maybe take a lump on the chin for. They know there's going to be other opportunities, especially when you have the confidence as well in yourself and know you're going to win.
Yeah. In any profession, it's
he just had a blog where he said he lost 500,000 and now he's about to win another $250,000 plus at the final table of another tournament. When you have that risk aversion, you can put yourself in spots to get $1 million bankrolls.
I agree. It's best to just go all in and try to be in the top 1% of whatever profession you're going towards, rather than be in the middle of the pack and no one knows about you and you're just doing enough to get by. You might as well take that risk to be great instead of mediocre. Greatness
is a word that I always appreciate, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see someone like Michael Phelps gravitate to the poker world and enjoy being friends with someone like an Antonio Esfandiari, because they see like greatness and you're winning the one drop. It's nice to associate yourself with someone that has worked hard enough to achieve greatness. And it's probably hard for someone like him to even be around mediocre people. You think, like, what would Phelps even want to hang around with you if you're so mediocre? Or like, with these, like, are you interesting enough? Do you bring something to the table? I hope that you have. If you're, for instance, my brother's a high school football coach. I bet that if you wanted to talk football, there's nobody better in the world, and you can be great at whatever you do, and you can have that mutual respect. Where some people are, of course, exercise science majors, they go to become physical therapists. You can be awesome at that, but it's awesome to go all in and be terrific at what you are. I think, real recognize real, but greatness and taking risks to get there is still something that we like to do.
One of the best pieces of advice I heard, or just generalizations growing up, was that you become who your friends are. So if your friends are a bunch of losers that have no aspirations in life, they just kind of drag you down. But if you're hanging around with all these great people that are, working hard, trying to be the best at their whatever they're doing, you're going to be motivated to do that also.
Yeah. Also, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Well, no, sometimes if you're the smartest guy in the room, everyone's cheating off you and you're doing all the work. So that's not fun either.
Yeah. But another success, because I have a business administration degree, and one of the keys to success is to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. If I open a business or plan to do anything, that's one of the, you got to have people that have expertise, and you can be great at something specific, like law or television production or website building or lots of different things.
Nice. You have a passion for basketball. Do you see that going anywhere in the future?
Actually, yeah. I've been playing my entire life, and in 2013, I started to have some adversity in my family, and I realized the best way to tackle that was to get into the gym. And I was so bad at golf that it was making me mad every time I played, and I realized basketball was my passion. So 3 or 4 years ago, I started playing a lot. We play every summer. A bunch of the poker community is good at basketball. Mercier and a few people we play when everybody gets into town. And I live in a gated community here that has a basketball gym, and I've been playing a lot with the local high schoolers and have actually befriended them. Only recently did the people in my gym figure out that I was a poker player. I just been a very good basketball player that was quiet and didn't have much to say, and then finally they're like, "So what do you do?" I said, "Oh, I play poker." Like, "Oh, do you play in the World Series of Poker?" Yeah. "Have you ever done anything?" Yeah. So a lot of them like me now, and it's like, "Hey Phil, how you doing?" And that has an effect on the kids as well, because all the adults, there's a lot of 30-somethings that we like to organize games around, and then the kids are around. I'm kind of the successful guy that can say, "Hey, how's school going?" And I'm considering even volunteering to be the high school coach. I actually saw that Sowers went on to be the offensive coordinator of a junior college. And if you still saw someone like him beforehand, and he said he knew what he was doing in football, you'd believe him. And I think that if I said I'd be a good basketball coach, and I'd take a critical thinking poker mind to that game, that at the high school level, I think would give me a lot of success. And same thing, if you have a passion for it, and then you find a couple other assistant coaches that have a passion, then you can be extremely successful. It's just deciding whether or not you have that passion for anything. And right now I'm kind of deciding if I do. This summer was interesting. I made 2 day threes, but didn't get a big score. And that's how the poker life goes. And sometimes you want that fulfillment away from the World Series, and becoming a basketball coach is, definitely something I'm actually seriously thinking about.
Yeah, that should be very rewarding. Hopefully you can get into that profession if that's what you really want to do.
Yeah, I think looking for something that give me the free time over the summer, that's kind of hard to find. But I'm awesome at basketball. And my brother is an offensive coordinator at our high school. So I've been around sports my whole life. I played basketball all the way, a few intramurals and whatnot. Actually, there's a guy who I play poker with. Actually, Steve Gross, Jaboro lives in here. We play basketball a lot. Eric Blair, Keith Ferreira, a few other pretty good poker players. Sometimes we run. Jaboro tore his ACL, and this other guy, Brian, who's pretty good at poker, tore his ACL as well. But I asked Brian about assistant coaching yesterday or 2 days ago, and he seemed extremely enthusiastic about it. So it's one of those things where if a couple of us decide that we might want to do it, there's a few high schools around here that have JV coaches and whatnot that you could start at that level. Also, if you're blessed enough to win enough in poker and you have that free time, it'd be nice to get back to. You don't have to make much. You'd be getting a lot out of it without a paycheck.
For sure. It's a damn shame that your Twitter account has been shut down by the Twitter overlords. But back in the day, maybe a few years ago, I remember following you on Twitter, and you said something that struck me so hard that I went out and did something about it. You said the economy's going to shit. Paraphrase this. Buy silver. Buy physical silver. That was you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I went out and bought. I bought APMEX.com. I got silver coins. I got 5-pound bricks of silver. I got kilos. It hasn't really changed much in price. What are your thoughts on the future of silver?
I'm extremely optimistic. I'm a contrarian thinker, and I told you that poker players are interested in that, in 10xing their money. I see a scenario where silver could go up by 20 times, 2,000%. It's hard to describe the full extent of my beliefs surrounding it, but if you look at what's happened in the crypto markets, you're seeing a flee from fiat currencies, and they would all tell you that. I think we haven't heard a very good explanation from anyone as to why we're seeing such a strong push into safe havens for money out of the fiat currency system, but gold and silver, the all-time greatest safe havens, aren't moving. There's something really, really weird about that. How come someone like me was saying, buy gold, I said in this order, silver, gold, Bitcoin. I was saying cryptocurrencies 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I was publicly recommending it under $50, promise. And I thought silver was better. And at this point, silver's at $17, $16, and Bitcoin's at 4,000. Whatever.
It's a gamble.
I think silver's better. It's hard to describe how anyone could watch Bitcoin go all the way up at this point and silver not move and say, I'll give you 10 grand to hold in one of them for the next 10 years. Which one do you want? For the next 20 years, 10 grand in one of them. Which one do you want? Of course, the answer is both. But in the poker community, I'm really concerned. I feel like I'm the only person that is. I don't even have a loud enough voice at this point because my account's been suspended, that we have a really gross amount of overexposure to our community in cryptocurrencies. It's been awesome, but at this point, I mean, I recommended it. I was the first person. I think I might be the first person going, guys, it was at, what were you buying at? 40? It's at what, 3,000? Guys, I know, remember when it went 1,000? I said sell. Then it dropped to 400. I said buy. Now again, I'm saying things are getting really weird. I think we have a president who's under investigation for being a fraudulent president, face value, that he shouldn't have been there. The system seems as though we've got a level of corruption that I think is unfathomable. I think if you look at what happened in 2008, when we have a massive crisis and no one went to jail, what I'm seeing is price suppression in gold and silver and a lot of the markets that scares me to a level that's hard to describe. And so it wouldn't make much sense for silver to rise slowly at this point. When I said 3 or 4 years ago, I thought silver and Bitcoin were interlocked in a permanent relationship where if one of them did well, it was 100% that the other one was going to do well. The fact that Bitcoin has gone off while silver hasn't means that, well, it still fit my scenario because I don't put myself into one. I know there's tree branches of scenarios. The tree branch we're on, when you have to say, look all the way back, how did we get here? How did silver go from 30 to 16 while Bitcoin went from 20 to 3,000? And they're obviously linked. But the answer is why. I think I think it means that silver's artificially low and Bitcoin's artificially high. Because if you know silver's not moving, why would you put your money in there? You're trying to make money. So I see a lot of the movement still as speculation. and Bitcoin. I see almost all of it as speculative. I don't see the macro move yet because silver and gold haven't moved. It's purely speculative, which is gross because at the same time, when the macro move happens, if Bitcoin is a thing, it's going to 100,000. When silver moves to 500, what do you think is going to happen to Bitcoin? So that it's not a specific thing. I see a scenario where we have a massive collapse of our financial system and gold and silver take off. But Bitcoin could be doing different things because the government could make it illegal. They could start putting people in jail and it could crash again. But because it's blockchain technology, it's not going anywhere. So I could still give you, I think it's going to 50,000, but I see a scenario where it drops back to like a couple hundred. Gold and silver take off. They make Bitcoin illegal. And then in 20 years, the people who like always held on to their Bitcoin are billionaires.
I could see that.
Like you see, like so what's happening is the opposite of what I think should be happening in gold and silver. When the gold and silver move happens, does that mean that Bitcoin will then also move opposite? That makes sense. Yeah. I feel like it might move opposite. And because of that, why would you think, okay, who's going to embrace gold and silver that would make Bitcoin also go down? The U.S. Federal Reserve wants to make gold $10,000, and the U.S. government says using Bitcoin is illegal. Boom. We have a problem with all in the poker community because nobody has gold and silver, and Bitcoin gets crushed. How's easy? I'm like, that's an easy scenario. I feel like that should be said more often. We have a collapse. The banks have gold now. They don't have Bitcoin. Wells Fargo and Citibank have zero incentive right now to take your Bitcoins or to say, yeah, let's embrace Bitcoin technology. Let's embrace blockchain technology. They want everyone to have credit cards, and they own the largest, most powerful military in the world. When they bring the police state and say the dollar's worth 3 times as less quickly, silver goes up, what do you think is going to be happening to your Bitcoins? Is it really going to be 50,000 in that moment? I don't think so. I could see it being very bad for them and then going up. I could also see it going to 50,000 and there being absolutely nothing they can stop it. Your average Joe is terrified to buy, but all the filthy money is just pouring into it because there's so many dollars to go around. That's what I said. I firmly believe that the Bitcoin move is speculative. When the macro move happens, if it's a part of it, 100,000.
Okay, can you tell the viewers a little bit more about the Federal Reserve and fractional reserve banking?
All right. Before we had the collapse in 2007, 2008, everybody knows, there were $1 trillion US. Right now, there's 5 trillion. The Federal Reserve straight up printed $4 trillion and gave it. Remember the quantitative easing? They were saying we're going to give the banks $80 billion a month. They were basically buying their dog shit and giving them cash, probably because they were underwater. The reason they went underwater is because they only have a fraction of their total assets held in reserves. It's fractional reserve banking. Before some of the maybe new banking laws or what happened after 2007, 2008, I know we changed some stuff, but before in 2006, the banks only had 3% of hard assets on their books, which means that if you're worth 100,000, or we'll call it 100 million, they only had 3 million in like cash. So all it takes is for you to lose 3% and or lose 4% and you're underwater. You literally don't have enough cash to pay your balance. But what their assets are usually mortgage payments, people who are paying. Like we've got these mortgages. Our bank owns these mortgages. These are streams of revenue. Our bank owns these houses. These are assets. So in a financial downturn, a hard one, they were all insolvent. Badly insolvent. Very badly insolvent. worse than anyone has ever told you, I think, in my opinion. And that's why we gave them $1 trillion afterwards that they paid us back, because we had to. We didn't just have to give them $1 trillion. Had to. They gave it to us back, man. No problem, right? We had to. Then we gave them another $4 trillion. So when you have fractional reserve banks that then own the regulators and take risks like poker players, and you enter a downturn, it takes up all their reserves because they only have a fraction of those reserves. And in a scenario like that, where that happens, say again, does anybody think that could happen again? They'll have to give them another few trillion. When they print that trillion and the world says that's too much, we don't want your dollars anymore, then we're 10xing down on what I've already told you, because the dollar's already on top. This is a scenario where we're already in first. We have nowhere to go but down. We go down a peg, it's bad for us. The dollar loses half its value. If we go down 2 pegs, it's quite bad. We got a president who says he doesn't want to be a part of the world. He wants to break up NATO. He's not interested in any of that. And when shit gets real, if shit got real right now, honestly, do you think the world would turn to America, or would they turn to someone else? Who would they turn to? And the answer is China. They're the largest economy in the world, and they have their shit together, more so than us. They also have lots and lots and lots of gold, and they aren't telling anyone. They have a lot of it. They're going to eventually say, we've got 8,000 tons. Not so sure how much the United States has anymore. Might want to check on that. Haven't heard about that in 40 years. And we have a currency called the yuan that's backed by gold that, by the way, just went up by 1,000%. In that scenario, now you have a healthy alternative to your dollar, and there isn't a collapse. There's a catch. And I think that we've almost been in the eye of the hurricane since 2007. I think the fractional reserve banks went underwater. The dollar we had to print $4 trillion. We had to immediately give them $1 trillion, then print another $4 trillion. And I think we're getting ready to see gold and silver make a move like Bitcoin did. In that scenario, I think it's not going to be very fun outside at all. I think it's going to look like Charlottesville and a lot of towns. And I think that it's going to look like the day after the Boston bombing in a lot of cities.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of speeches by Andreas Antonopoulos, the Bitcoin Jesus, and he talks a lot about hyperinflation in history affecting a lot of countries where their dollar just becomes worthless just because they just keep printing it. Do you see the same future for the U.S.?
I see it in the price of Bitcoin. It's not my opinion. The move in cryptocurrencies is telling you that the fiat currency system, that's where all the speculation is. Everyone's willing to bet a lot of money and hold a lot of money in the bet that all your shit's going to collapse. Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable knowing that a smart guy or all these smart people have gone 3 years ago, guys, I think Bitcoin's like the future, and silver. Oh, Bitcoin went up 5,000% and silver didn't move. The dollar also hasn't really moved much. Like if this continues down this trajectory, then yeah, I see the dollar losing a lot of value very quickly. Oil becoming $10 a gallon, milk becoming $10 a gallon. And in that scenario, I see more of a police state. We can get through it. We saw human beings are genetically designed to look what's right in front of your face. We didn't have food on the shelves that wouldn't go bad for 3 weeks whenever we were being evolutionary, whenever we were evolving. We're used to hunting and gathering and worrying about what we're going to eat today and tomorrow. Not what's going to happen in 10 years. It's just not a thing that we do as a species. So in general, you would think our species, that's why we keep having these cycles of collapses in 2008, the dot-com bubble. People don't think about what's going to happen in 5 years. And I think we're in a scenario where people haven't been really paying attention to where the consequences are going to take us in 10 or 20 years. And we've been doubling down on fractional reserve banking and fiat currency systems. And I think the signs are there that it's going to rip apart at the seams, or at least get pulled, stretched. The thing is, this happened already in the 80s during Jimmy Carter's presidency. We had extremely high inflation, and it wasn't any fun for anyone. Reagan got in and we did tame it, but at the same time we kind of unleashed more fraudulent activity. But there's kind of always been a cycle. But I feel like we're kind of at the end of a fiat cycle, and we're getting ready to go hard into a gold-backed currency again, like we did early in the 20th century. Like I said, gold goes to 10,000. China says we've got a lot of it, and we've got a currency that's backed by gold. There's a place in that world for Bitcoin and the cryptos, but that's the future that I think that we're barreling towards, and I don't see that's what's going to happen.
Okay, so if a U.S. resident asks you for your advice and he says he has $100K in fiat, what percentage of that should he invest in Bitcoin, silver, physical silver versus silver-based stocks?
Like just 10% is fine. It's just a terrific hedge. As an investor, this isn't something that you might be very interested in hearing, but as just a human being who's looking to minimize your risk, you have to have 5% in hard assets. If you own a home, good. If you own land, good. But if you're if you're a poker player holding $100,000 in dollars, you got it in your bank or in a safety deposit box, you're at risk. I think you should at least say, I would like to hold like 10,000 in euros or something, right? Wouldn't that be smart? I'd like to hold, 5,000 in euros just in case something happens. I can get out of here. How about like 5,000 in euros and 5,000 in gold and silver, or 5,000 in Bitcoin? Now you've just got 20 that's kind of tucked away in case something happens to the rest of your 80. Put 20 in the stock market if you still think the stock market's going up. There's just no reason to not have 5 or 10. Personally, I think like 10 or 20 would be better at this point, especially as low as silver is. 10% of, if you've got cash, 10% of what you have in one of these alternatives seems like a must. It's just 10%.
I agree. It's very smart to diversify. And plus, you got that extra sweat. American dollar, there's no sweat. It's just going down 2% a year. Crypto can go up 100% in one day.
If you don't own a home and you're a poker player that's just sitting on cash, I'd like to see you put it in something that was hard, like the stock market could go up and down as well, but something hard like gold and silver. I've been saying this for a long time, so it's not like this conversation is really any different from the ones I've been having for 3 or 4 years. The difference is Bitcoin's up 5,000% since I first started saying it. Whenever silver moves, it'll be over.
Nice. Wow, that's some great information. You're not regurgitating it. There's plenty of people that will see this that have no idea, and they can benefit greatly from the knowledge that you've spread.
Thanks. I mean, I think it's good to say that what you think, especially if you see. What I'm saying is I see risk to a lot of Americans, especially in our community, that are holding dollars. In our community, a lot of at least the poker community knows about crypto as an alternative, which is good. But on a poker channel, I like that you've mentioned crypto a lot because I think it's good to offer people alternatives to something that they might be 100% invested in. We mentioned risk and how you go 100%, you do have risk. Sometimes that's not good if we're talking about your life roll. You don't want to have 100% on your bankroll. Start tucking some of that away. So silver and gold aren't going anywhere.
And there you have it, folks. Phil Collins, excellent advice, excellent information. A very smart guy who's done it all in poker, investing, and soon to be basketball. Hopefully. We'll definitely keep in touch. Thanks again for joining the PokerTube podcast. You can find Phil Collins on Facebook or just at the local gym, hooping it up, maybe coaching a professional team in the future. Who knows? He's got the dedication, drive, and desire to make it in whatever he puts his mind to. Thank you for joining us, Phil Collins.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate that.
You can watch us back live on YouTube, and PokerTube.com will feature that on their main page. On behalf of PokerTube.com, I'm Jeff Boski. Jeff Boski on YouTube, jeffboski.com. Thanks for joining in, and we'll catch you again for the next podcast, possibly with Mike Haig within the next week. Take care, and thanks again, Phil.